I felt goosebumps. So I don't know. I hope you feel the passion, not just from the audio team, but from everyone that poured a lot of work into this.
Pedro wrote some of the best
music gives
music.
justice to the thousands of man hours that were put in this displays.
The music so far has been amazing. And yeah, he does really good music for the other aspects of Star Citizen too.
Yeah, he's been with the project for a few years now, and everything he's touched seems to be pretty dang good. He's composed.
Yeah, if by chance he ever sees this, I'm going to apologize now. I do not play the game with the music on, mostly because 99% of the time I am filming and can't have it in there.
That is something I wish Star Citizen will work on, create more creator-friendly music.
So much better than we ever hoped it would be when we started working on Crusader half a year ago.
They did a lot
very,
for a half a year.
Than what you'd see,
Especially
huge
with everything
to look
overcome.
at, these beautiful sunsets to look at, but also almost too perfect a world.
I guess the biggest reaction that we're trying to create is this insane sense of scale, and we really want to capture that sense of Orison just sprawling out into the distance.
I've seen our backers get excited about all kinds of tiny little details that you'd think, that doesn't really matter, but...
I don't know. I think those details do matter. Do you notice those when playing?
Absolutely. It makes the game that much more believable. I believe some of the devs were kind of poking at that, saying it's almost too unbelievable or something. I get a lot of BioShock Infinite vibes from the world of Orison so far. These in BioShock Infinite, you had this floating city, right? And it was too perfect. And then you find out a lot about the residents of this city and a lot of the pangs of what was being experienced in the underwater city that was perfectly set up, and it's almost the tale of two different, controlling patriarchs trying to run these perfect worlds, and everything falls apart around them. I think with this world here, I hope that that's not the case. Crusader is an actual industry is a competent company working towards a good goal and producing excellent equipment, but it gives me vibes of it.
I haven't thought about that at all, but now that you mention it, I do see the similarities. I don't know if that's just because it's a floating city. Like, what other floating city do we know of?
It's also like the oversaturation. Like right where you paused here is a perfect example of that, where you have an incredible amount of color. I think the upper atmosphere of Orison is a unique place. It's in the upper atmo of a large gas giant, and the solar effects in that area would be completely different than what we know. And you would have a very strong sun there. You'd probably have to be walking around with SPF 2000 or something, because you would have, yes, you can breathe there, sure, but it would be the equivalent of high altitude and also that effect of an immense extra amount of UV light that could potentially be exposed to. And plants would probably behave differently in that larger high light area. These plants, for example, wouldn't be dried out because they're sitting in water, but I would suspect that this is an example of some of the oversaturation of colors that's accentuated here due to all the sunlight.
Huh. Almost makes you wonder what the city's water bill is for all their trees and wildlife then.
Yes, and also how much they have to pay to feed all those sky whales that are coming in, the storm walls.
I don't even want to think about that.
They are going to have the first wild animals in the game. Both the statue of the storm wall and also the storm wall itself will be naturally flying around above the clouds and dipping into the clouds. And this is a city that's
their name for the space whale?
Space whale, storm wall, yeah.
Okay.
And these creatures are going to be massive. And from what the devs have hinted at least, is you'll be able to take the tram system, which looks like a flying shuttle, at least based on the work in progress that they've provided, images they provided. That shuttle will have great views of both the platforms, the huge cloud structures, and then also the whales in some cases when they come out.
You think Drake will let you put harpoons on your Kraken?
Yeah, and especially the Kraken Privateer, because then you could harpoon the whale, and then you could serve whale dinner at the 8 public and 2 private stores. You could turn them into a restaurant that sells whale meals.
Yeah, that kind of sounds like something that they would do.
And then they get busted for it, of course. But yes.
And they would have to have that one theme song from Futurama. They're like, we're whalers on the moon. We carry a harpoon. I don't remember the rest of it.
That's exactly it. I mean, I got to tell you, I thought the first wild animals were going to be on Hurston outside of Lorville. I thought you were going to jump in your Rover or your Cyclone or on your Ranger or, 50 other, the Dragonfly, whatever you got, and be able to go out and explore the countryside. And there would be like these wild boar and the equivalent of space wolves or something.
Oh, that makes too much sense.
Yeah, instead, like many things, CIG has made the decision to go big or go home. So on Orison, you not only have the flying platforms, you have the first wild animals we have with AI pathing for them, and they move, they fly through the air. It's going to be interesting. Now, they can't go to the center of the planet either. There's atmospheric mechanics that they're going to introduce soon. With this patch, where if you attempt to fly into the clouds of Orison, each ship will have a special pressure depth that can go to. Some industrial ships may enjoy a deeper pressure depth. So if somebody's chasing you, it may actually behoove you to go into the clouds, not go up into space. The whales also have a pressure depth that they can go to before they pass. So basically, the whales live constantly in atmosphere. They are constantly moving between upper and mid-atmosphere levels.
I was going to ask you about that, like what they were going to do to keep ships out from the center of the planet.
Yeah, your ship will literally be popped in like a tin can, as I understand it, that will be destroyed eventually. At first, you'll take damage, and then it will be destroyed. It's kind of an interesting way to do it.
Do you think that we'll eventually get a new ship destruction animation for that?
Absolutely. And also, there was already questions from the community during the last discussions they had a few days ago. My video, The Road to 3.14, has a lot of the discussion on that. But the devs basically said there will be water mechanics. So if you attempt to put your ship underwater, the same system can be applied to that and will likely be applied in the future. And some ships in the future may even have engines that can work underwater. So that brings up a whole nother bunch of mechanics, which ties in nicely to what we're seeing here, with water technology coming along, and the shaders they're using for water are pretty nice. They're doing some work on it, which is cool. Both for the nice
A little bit of fun trivia, given that you were just talking about submarine mechanics and pressure differentials. Did you know that pressure doors on the ISS open inward, and on submarines they open outward? So if the door mechanics fail, the pressure differential will keep them closed.
That makes a lot of sense. I did not know that. I just think of that scene in Down Periscope when they open the patch up. So I know it goes up. That's the submarine. Mm-hmm. That's all I do.
Yep. Yeah, the door goes out. So if by chance there is a failure in the mechanisms of the door, the water pressure outside will keep the door shut.
That's genius.
And they don't flood. It's the same thing with the International Space Station. The internal air pressure keeps the door shut.
And that's something really that we'll see with the space-based craft. Just because your ship can go into space does not mean it can do well under the sea. Don't get me wrong, it would be really good to be able to take your ship, say, for example, a stealth dropship, drop off 20 of your closest friends, and then go right nearby and sit in a lake or a ocean or something right under the surface, power down anything non-vital, and just sit there. So you're off scan for the most part and very difficult to find for the enemy. And then come back, ideally be able to reballast yourself up or get buoyant again somehow, and be able to go pick your friends up to survive and scoop the loot that you guys have taken and get out of there. That is something that will be in the cards, hopefully, for some ships. That will be something maybe that'll give them some utility when we get to ground-based combat and planetary outpost technologies. Even for, indie ships, it would be perfect for it, too.
Yeah, being underwater versus out in space is entirely a different beast when it comes to pressures. I think it's like 12 feet is, I think, 2.8 bar. Like, that's a lot of pressure for just 12 feet underwater.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless.
It's exciting stuff. Just anecdotally, I mean, if you take a look at Starship, SpaceX's project, I can't help but notice a lot of things that seem to be developed from the same concepts as a submarine. Interestingly, though, like the way it's created, how it has bulkheads, how it's shaped to cut through the air, much like a submarine would cut through the water. Where Starship does go straight is a vertical ship, whereas submarines are horizontal. But
yeah.
It's I think it's interesting that both types of technology they're developed for different places, but we're taking a lot of what we learned in one realm and we try to build it out into another area. But yeah, it's good stuff. All right, so we've really covered a lot with Orison. Let's see what else they got for us.
The first time I saw it for myself, it was beautiful.
I'll be honest, it'll only get better from here.
Things that give an environment character beyond just the architecture and the shape of it is things that are super important, like the dressing, the props that are placed around the foliage.
Nice lamp call out there. Looks like lamp 2.0 was on that table. Sorry, I had to mention that for the old-time backers.
I didn't even notice it. I remember you showing me the lamp the other day, but it didn't even cross my mind that might be the same lamp.
That looks close to it. The original lamp has a little pylon at the bottom that kind of supports it, but that's the same squared off design with the light emanating out to the sides as the original lamp. That looks like a high-tech version of the lamp.
I think that's a new variant of Pepto-Bismol.
Probably. Space Pepto-Bismol. It has to be.
Space Pepto.
Pepto
Space.
Something else interesting that, we take for granted. Take a look at that cigar right there. Think about on a space station, you'd have to filter that out. And at a bar on a space station, that's a luxury right there that on Orison you can just have and enjoy without having to worry about those small things.
I didn't even think about that. Because, yeah, I don't think I've seen a lit cigarette in the game yet. Maybe on the bar in Microtech. I don't remember.
But think about it. On Orison, yes, space is a premium, but they could, in theory, grow product. And then also they could smoke it there, tobacco products, and it would be, no big deal. They don't have to filter the air.
That's pretty cool. That'd be awesome if we do get the ability to have some cigars or something in the future.
Yeah, little things like that flesh out the world. I disagree with the dev who had the position of we're surprised at the little things. Those are what build your world. Those are what make you ground to it. You anchor to it.
Yeah, it's it kind of goes a little bit along the lines of if you do something right, no one should know you did anything at all.
Indeed.
Props that are placed around the foliage. A lot of it is about adding that human element in, because if you have no dressing, you've just got architecture, it feels very sterile and doesn't feel very real. So one way we try to add that character into a location is through what we call our graphic standards, which includes fonts and iconography and just style of lines and things. And those can be different between whole landing zones, but they could also be different within.
I guess that's
landing zones.
Windows 26.
Windows 26.
Well, yeah, Windows 11 has the rounded edges now. So I guess by Windows 26, we'll have a rounded edges, and then bottom right, you'll have the logo of the company that sponsored your operating system.
Rounded chamfers. I would be 100% okay with an operating system by Crusader.
Yeah, their aesthetic is...
granted, yeah, their aesthetic is beautiful. They need a new voice for the ship. I'm sorry, but the MSR voice is trash. It needs to be something different.
I think I know a pretty good MSR voice. I'm not quite sure that somebody plays song around here.
Yeah. Yeah, song would be fine. Song would be a great voice. It bothers me hearing it every time because it's like it's so gritty compared to the rest of the ship. The rest of the ship is elegant and like really nicely thought out. Other than the elevator not reaching the floor. But we're going to kind of gloss over that. Because like the Anvil Carrack has a really nice sounding computer. But it's like a military ship.
Yes. And one gripe I have about the Carrack in particular, I'll pick on the Carrack instead of the MSR. But I think the MSR could maybe benefit from this too. In the Carrack's forward cargo hold, when you're not utilizing it for a rover, I would love to see an overhead gantry crane that can go forward and back and at least a bit side to side. So the idea is that cargo that is like heavy to move around and such, you could move in and out with this huge crane that would allow you to unpack itself and kind of position it. And the reason for that is I think sometimes you're not going to want to break out a tractor beam and make all this kind of noise and bright lights and such. And a Carrack may be used for some type of sensitive operations. You don't want to really trust a beam design, like something that's just flinging a very sensitive science experiment around that may be the size of a pallet. And I think that would be perfect to have like some type of internal crane design that is extremely good on tolerances. You mentioned the elevator not going to the floor, for example. That's things that like a science ship can't tolerate. You can't have systems that don't work right, and you don't know exactly how they're going to operate. Another example of that is moving sensitive science equipment around. So there's a few ships like that. MSR would be another example to a lesser extent. It has a pretty reasonable size cargo hold. It would be cool to see the same deal where it has a much smaller type of overhead crane design that can lift cargo and move it gently out in and out of the ship. And quietly.
I can still see the MSR using a crane because it's like right when you come in over to the right, they have that little weird jog where the like smuggler's hold is, but it doesn't quite reach up to the door because you have the edge of the elevator is like in line with the opening of the door, but then it kind of jogs over to the right. And if you have like a second vehicle, the crane could kind of help you get it into an off-center position to where then you'd have a good amount of room to bring an Ursa in.
Exactly. There you go. And you could even do some interesting stuff. Like, for example, if you're using motorcycles that are bad to reverse and difficult to move around is safely in reverse, being able to just pick it up like it's a Tonka toy and move it over to the door, or just turn it around. Literally just pick it up and turn it 180 degrees and face it back towards the door so you can safely drive forward out of there. You know, things like that give you more control over your own ship and give you that ability to kind of fine tune your cargo area. And it's almost, okay, I'm going to just come out and say this. It's almost like it's its own little mini game for that kind of player. Somebody that's an engineering mindset would enjoy being able to position everything in the cargo hold and maximize that efficiency in that cargo hold and really make it their own. And that's one more tool to do that. It's one more tool where they can really do all that by themselves while the ship may be moving to the next location, setting everything up. Like, okay, once we land, we're going to be able to quickly move all these ships out because Bob's down there moving everything around already. He's got it all pre-positioned, ready to rock. You know, and that's nice little things like that. But
Could
yeah,
also be for a couple of buddies going for a camping weekend. You got, say, 4 buddies. You have 3 dragonflies and an Ursa, but the floor only holds 2 dragonflies and an Ursa. You can keep 1 in the crane.
indeed.
Depending on it, it might be more industrial looking, it might be more habitational looking, and or medical, for example. There's different ways you can do that.
One thing that we talked about was
This music heavily
tourism is
reminds
a
me of
big part
Battlestar
your industry.
Galactica
You want
04,
to paint the pretty picture
when they were trying
You
to
want
piece
have
things together at the
postcard shot.
Cylons. Just thought I'd mention that. I know it's a random thought, but this music sounds exactly like that. There's like some, I think after the new Caprica kerfuffle and a couple of the Cylons that were not happy with this way the Cylon race was going, went and sided with the humans. They played this kind of music when they were all patching things together with the humans. I don't know. It's just giving me weird vibes now. I'm like looking for, where's number 5 at? Sorry, God.
You consume through your eyes as you see what people are dressed like. What are the vendors wearing? What are they selling? What are they talking? The people that come up to you. What's the average person look like? Like that tells so much about an area. In this case, we kind of focused in on sort of this 1950s Americana, like the white picket fence, the perfect family unit. The Norman Rockwell sort of painting. Like, what is that sci-fi version of that? Even the
I want that pin.
I don't know. Do you see that?
No, not at all.
I don't either.
For starters, like the guy they showed just before this in the security outfit looks like he's wearing like a Venture riding gear for a motorcycle. Like, it doesn't look like 1950s white picket fence. And this guy over to the left looks like he's out of Cyberpunk. Like, so
Yes.
this guy,
He has a mohawk.
and he's got reinforced knee pads, like, and he's got Merrill type shoes on, like modern shoes. And then right before these two, there's a security guy that looks like, once again, he looked like he, without that, well, unless you don't count his baseball cap. No. Maybe it's even further back. I apologize.
No.
Maybe forward? That reminds me a lot of Disney World Futureland stuff. That right there. That
Yeah,
gives me
Builders
vibe.
of Tomorrow.
Yeah,
That is a
name
sweet
and-
shirt.
That shirt is pretty sweet. In real life, I would wear that. Like, I don't want it to say Star Citizen. I just want, if people don't know what that means, then deal with it. Like, her outfit, okay, first of all, her haircut's not 1950s. It's a very modern haircut, which is cool. Nothing wrong with it. The shirt itself gives me older style vibes. The pants give me older style vibes, like a men's dress pant.
Yeah.
Like, there's a mix here. There's a mix of styles here, but I don't see it as 1950s, any of it.
Yeah, unless like maybe they're talking about strictly the architecture, in which, I mean, I don't really see that either. I think Fallout nailed it in a futuristic 50s vibe. This
Clinging
I
to
see
it.
like, yeah, like this I see like a happy Blade Runner.
Yes, Happy Blade Runner with a little dash of Disney's Tomorrowland, like the vision they had for the city of Tomorrowland before it had to get turned into a theme park, because basically
Yeah.
Walt passed and he didn't have so the visionary was gone. It was like a Steve Jobs situation. Without him kind of
Yep.
guiding it, it kind of withered on the vine, and they kind of scaled it way back. So you only get hints of it now. So yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Happy Blade Runner is a very, very good way to put it. I'm fine with that. It's a
1950.
beautiful place.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
these Americana, like the white picket fence, the perfect family unit, the Norman Rockwell sort of painting. Like, what is that sci-fi version of that? Even the guys wearing suits, it's like that traditional, well-dressed businessman of that era. And that kind of was our jumping off point. It's got a much different feel than a lot of the zones because of that.
Performance is one of the biggest challenges, especially for lighting. For lighting, we wanted to achieve a nice contrast between, you know, kind of a friendly, welcoming mood for the commercial and tourism areas, and then at the same time, not an unwelcoming mood, but more of a functional kind of high-tech workspace for the other industrial platforms. And then at the same time, we also want to add further contrast so that at daytime, it's very clean, it's very bright, and then at nighttime, you get a little bit more varied color palette. And because we want to have all of this light at nighttime, we have to take into account the level of detail that we expect, while also leaving enough room in the lighting budget for all of these lights, like one platform further away from you, 2 platforms, 3, and even further than that. So lighting is a big challenge.
That looks beautiful.
There's the space whale statue, by the way, and behind it is a splash effect. That's what that statue is supposed to be, those curved metal bars.
Oh. I was like sitting here thinking it was some like futuristic art installation that I wasn't meant to understand.
Yeah, that's what it is, and that's like the whale statue and the splash are meant to, like, I believe, greet people. If you look in the foreground of that station, there is a drop-off point for the shuttle, like a pickup drop-off point. That's what that archway is in front of the whale. And people would stand there and just like think Area 18, the same deal, like those flying shuttles that are not on a track. They will fly up, they will pick you up, and then they'll fly away. It's the same concept, but there's like 180-degree glass all around you, or nano carbide tubes that are clear, whatever it is. But it's there, and it's going to be, you'll sit in the seats, or more likely stand there and shoot each other with foam darts while you can look at the sky and all the beautiful platforms around you. And yes, lighting is always a challenge. Coming from community development with VR Chat, we endlessly fight with lighting with Unity, because real-time lighting is extraordinarily hard to have on your computer and not bring it to its knees, even a good computer. So I think that this is going to be something that will not be a day one experience that's out of the box good. I think the frame rates are going to be low, and over time they'll slowly bring them back up by fine-tuning everything. So you probably will have spikes of low FPS no matter what they do. So sorry to break the bad news, but at least just mentally prepare yourself that this is going to be more of a fun experience, and to see the new exciting sights, and maybe not a place you want to work out of 24/7, at least at first.
Well, let's just hope it's not going to be as bad as Lorville.
Oh yeah, Lorville, when that first came out, oh boy.
Like, what are you talking about? Frame rates in Lorville are still bad.
I'm okay with Lorville's frame rates. Only when like the load, like all the NPCs all load at the same time. That kills me. But I don't know. Maybe I just hang out and maybe I hang out in seedier bars than you. I don't know.
I don't know. I am working on a machine that is starting to show its age, so that could be a very big factor in it.
The biggest problem with Star Citizen right now is that it's so CPU intensive. Recently, we had some really interesting discussion points publicly put on Reddit and on the Spectrum, talking about how the game engine development team members are working very hard to get Gen 12 support into the game and Vulkan support into the game. And they're saying you probably won't see performance across the board increases, at least at first, but you'll see spikes reduce, and you'll also, more importantly, see some of the load be taken off the CPU and sent to where it belongs, the GPU. So it will go from CPU usage to graphics. And the graphics card is built for that type of spiky type of gameplay needs. It's just better in general for that type of work. So I'm excited to see that, because a lot of people, you know, you've probably at least upgraded your graphics card at least once over this lifespan of your computer, but you don't upgrade your CPU without ripping everything apart, you know, in most cases.
Yeah, I had to update mine. I was putting on new thermal paste, and when I was cleaning it off, I wiped a capacitor away. And I I cried, and then I bought a 1080, not when they were cheap.
The thing is, the 1080s is still a solid graphics card. That's the shocking part. Like when they moved over to the 2000 series, the 1080 was only like, I don't know, 15, 20% behind. And the 1080
Yeah.
GTI was like even less. And then, sorry, 1080 Ti. And then when the 3000 series came out, they won't compare it to the 1080. Even if you go to like the most respected like comparison sites, they will not compare it to the 1080. Like it's, I think they're embarrassed. I think that even the 3000 series is not that much better, especially if you compare it to the 1080 GT. Sorry, Ti model.
I think a lot of those are because if you were going to do a comparison about it, because it has RTX, you'd want RTX on. So I have no numbers to go with, but I feel like with RTX on, the 3080 is similar to the 1080 with RTX on and
Yeah.
1080 no RTX. But they did release RTX for the 1080, so you can use it. So I mean,
Yeah, without the
you can,
tensor cores, but it still can do it.
yeah.
Probably for Minecraft RTX would probably be a good example of that. But like if you're trying to use RTX in, I don't know, Cyberpunk 2077, an unoptimized game that's extremely graphics intensive, it probably wouldn't be able to keep up with that at any
Oh
reasonable
no.
frame rate. But like for Minecraft or some other highly optimized, well established games that is able to be well handled, probably it would handle it with flying colors.
Yeah, I would guess.
Particularly one of my personal favourite bits with the butterflies and the fireflies that come out at night in the garden. They are absolutely stunning. It's one of those things you don't necessarily notice the little details consciously, but it just breathes so much life into an
Can
otherwise
we
empty
play
space.
this back like 10 seconds? Because, yes, don't get me wrong, I really do appreciate and admire the butterflies and the fireflies like she does. But I'm also looking at the massive,
That come out at
massive
night in the
capital-like
garden.
ship
They
moving
are
across the
absolutely
atmosphere. What is that?
Oh, I was thinking the same thing as I was watching, and I'm like, I'm getting some Horizon Zero Dawn type of vibes when you're
Yeah.
in. Yeah,
Is that the
I was kind of wondering
Jupiter?
that
Like,
too.
so there's this huge carrier capital ship that the Capacitor folks have in the lore. Is that a Jupiter class, or is that just is that how the platforms just suddenly just decide to move around on above you?
I
Like,
was thinking like maybe one of those signs behind planes. It's like just a moving billboard.
oh my god, if that gigantic thing is just a moving billboard, I would love it. I would love just the great like that's like flexing. That like especially if it just says Crusader, we're better than you and we know it. Something like that.
They could totally do that. Drakes would have to be like implanted in their building on fire and smoking.
Yeah.
And then a worker has to come by, slap a roll of duct tape on it, and then it starts working again. I know I'm harping on Drake a lot, but I mean, come on. It's Drake.
The thing is, they love it though. I mean, like if you talk to
They
the community
do.
members, and don't give
And
me, you know, like
I love that for them.
that's the thing. Like
I
their ships are solid. It's just they're solid in different ways than what we're used to.
like I was talking with you a little bit about this earlier, like the show Red Green. I'm not sure how many in the audience would know that, but I feel like Red would have a Drake. The king of duct tape would have a Drake.
Is that the uncle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that drives the possum van. And I was always so confused about it when I was a little kid. Because, I mean, like, you're watching it on, like, a tube TV back then, and you don't really see the little details and stuff. But recently, I was rewatching some of the episodes, and there's actually a possum painted on the side of the van That's why it's called the possum fan, and I did not notice it until recently. Because the tube TV was not at a resolution enough to be able to see it.
That's amazing.
Little details consciously, but it just breathes so much life into an otherwise empty space. In the case of the platform thrusters, you've got to communicate why this platform is floating. You've got this massive platform, it's got to have some way of staying in the air. So the idea is that these thrusters are there to keep this platform in situ, otherwise you're just going to fall out of the sky and fall into the gas giant. So first...
That really interests me, because now I want to know, are we going to see, like, Starfarer, or... I always get them confused. Whatever one holds a bunch of gas.
Starfarers.
The Starfarers. Are we going to see a bunch of them coming and, like, landing, and they're going to refuel the platforms?
I hope so. Like, I mean, stuff like that would certainly make it more interesting. As I understand it, the platforms are, like, neutrally buoyant somehow, which I don't understand how that's possible, but space technology. And then those thrusters are, like, just like the ISS that we talked about earlier, they're kind of like, it has to once in a while do this altitude adjustment thrust, and that's what that's doing.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, just, like, kind of put it back up at the top of its arc.
Yes, and there was some work in progress video from, like, in the top left corner, those, like, pylon looking things that are pointing downwards.
Yep.
The shots they were showing with the work in progress stuff they were really cool. Like when the sun's going down type of situation, and they look very Star Warsy, like, you know, from Cloud City. Really cool stuff. So I think people are going to have a ton of this is going to be a screenshot generating monster for at least a few months for folks.
Oh, I am so excited to see them.
Also, below in that exact shot, bottom section, that's the factory floor right there. I'm hoping they show more of that in detail in this video. But that whole section, those are production bays right there.
Let's keep watching and find out.
Platform, it's got to have some way of staying in the air. So the idea is that these thrusters are there to keep this platform in situ, otherwise you're just going to fall out of the sky and fall into the gas giant. So first for us, been a bit technically challenging, but I think it's going to be worth it.
The initial goal and reference point for generating clouds, like realistic looking clouds that are convincing for the player, or like for everybody, obviously, is always going to be Earth. But Art Direction wanted something less Earth-like and a bit more alien, if you will. And that was one of the bigger challenges.
I definitely know there's some visual artifacts that you can see sometimes in high contrast areas or in the distance and stuff. But I know that if it's not fixed by 3.14, that Carson and the team will definitely be able to work on those and improve those in the future.
I think it's great that the cloud tech is going out as it is, because it does look amazing. Everything that's gonna have clouds will use this technology.
So I see a bunch of these platforms, and I wonder if we're going to end up in another situation sort of like ArcCorp, where it has a bunch of these places, but you can't really land anywhere.
I think you're right. They said Chris Roberts, I believe himself, was part of a discussion where he was saying there's going to be a factory area, or, sorry, just to be clear, one of the pillar devs explained that Chris Roberts said he wanted the factory to be in the first iteration of Orison. He felt that was an important part because it's the core of Crusader Industries. The reason they took this place over was because they wanted to be able to build Herculeses and other amazing ships like that in Atmo, but gain the power of that low atmosphere that's in Orison. So, long story made short, you will at least be able to get onto at least one factory platform. You'll be able to get, which has a visitor center for visitors, and also you can, I think, walk around most of it. And there will be a set of stores. I forget the name of the place, but it's basically like a 2-story mall that will have, you know, different types of things like that. And there will also be habitation, food, the usual services that you would expect from a large city. and at least the outside of a hospital facility, Orison General, the health center. They did not. It is very likely that it will not be in the first iteration, because healthcare across the board for interiors is part of the roadmap for the into next year, the first quarter of next year. So Orison General will likely open once Area 18's health center, New Babbage's health center. You see where I'm going with this. All the different health centers will be opened at the same time or near around the same time. And that will become a big part of your game, by the way. If you don't have good health care, if you die or you have to respawn, once that's fully implemented, you will basically respawn in a health center instead of respawn in your hab. That's going to be a big jarring effect for a lot of players. It will be a luxury to respawn in a hab if you die. Sorry for dropping that on
Just from
everybody.
what is there already,
No.
it's so promising that we have no doubt it's going to be amazing once it's fully realized and deployed in the whole universe.
I'm gonna try and land on all of those.
For the planet, we wanted to feel the more grandeur element of Crusader. It's a fantastic planet. I think the music is the first thing that makes you understand the culture and the tone of the place. The guidance
There's the
I
shuttle,
got from
dead
Darren
center.
when you land is that you wanted to feel
shuttle's
as
awesome.
if you were looking at
Yeah, it's got
an
like a bunch
eternal
of seats
sunset.
in it too. It's got a lot of seats
It's
in it.
like, isn't it like double road?
Yeah, and then there's that weird platform that's moving around in space above it. You can see that still moving around. It's another
Gotta
view
be a
of it.
billboard, man. It's gotta be a billboard.
Maybe I would love it if it's the whale warden. Like, it's when I went to Yellowstone a few years ago, there was a guy on the side of the road. It was a random park ranger for the Yellowstone Park. And he was like the whole get up, the green get up and everything. And I pulled over and we're like, hey, how's it going? Like, why are you here? He keeps staring up the hill and he's like, I'm here for the bear. And we're like, oh, okay. Well, we kind of want to see the bear. And then he like his eyes got narrow and he's like, no, you stay here. The bear stays up there. And we're like, oh, okay. And he had his truck, and that was his job all day. He was basically the bear warden. He kept the people from walking up to the bear, and he kept the bear from walking down to the people. And he let us get some pictures of the bear from like the bottom of the hill. Like that was his whole job.
What a job.
So it would be
That sounds
amazing.
exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yep. Yeah, he didn't have any big, like, he wasn't exactly Rambo. It was a little old guy, and he did have a something on his side, for normal things. But I guess he had maybe a rubber beanbag thing or something in the car, or he had a truck. Who knows what he had in there? But I thought it was real funny how like that was his job. He's a very peaceful, mellow guy, and he just kept an eye. You stay here, the bear stays up there.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he also fed the thing and kept it up there for the feed. That's my suspicion. But I don't know. But I would love it if that little platform that's floating up there is like the whale warden. Like it just follows the whale around to make sure nobody messes with the whale. And it keeps the whale away from the big buildings. Like I would love it if like the whale comes to visit like the buildings or messes with a shuttle, and this thing's like this gigantic floating thing's like, oh, now I gotta go move the whale again.
What was that movie? I think Will Smith played it. He played a fish, and they had like a drive-through for fish.
Oh my god. No, it wasn't Finding Nemo, but I know what you're talking about. I've seen that movie.
Yeah.
It was like
I
that.
think it had like, yeah, yep.
You had a car wash, right?
Yeah, it was a car wash, but for like fish and whales and stuff. Yeah. I cannot remember the name of the movie though.
I would love if that platform has like 18 tractor beams on board, like all sorts of matter, and like it's just full of like Crusader Labs like game wardens, and that's their whole job is to just keep the whale away from the people, and the people stay away from the whales.
I would love to see one of the buildings open up and the whale just goes through it and then comes out on the other side all sudsy.
We are, yes, yes. I would pay a lot of UEC to get to watch the whale get washed and it's all happy about it and stuff.
The whale wash. I
That's
want to see
catchy.
it. Whale wash.
Crusader whale wash.
Or something like that. I mean, kind of like makes you go into the most human part of you. And for the industrial part, we wanted to
I love
make
that
sure
night.
we
I
felt
love it
the
night.
grandeur
It's
of
beautiful.
the industrious mind of
Night
engineers that
looks so
work
pretty.
there and construct all the beautiful ships that we have in the Star System. I certainly really much more deeper than usual, even more deeper. I mean, I try to go deeper and deeper in everything I go. So hope you guys enjoy it.
Our next landing zone, Orison, and the gas giant Crusader that sits beneath it represent the next major milestone for our planet tech, content, environment, engine, graphics, VFX teams, and more. And like each planet and moon before it, we'll continue to iterate and improve as subsequent technologies come online and further development progresses. And while it's a major component of the upcoming Alpha 314, there's more where that came from. Now, before we let you go for the quarter, let's take a moment to recap everything coming our way in the patch report. As we just saw, the fabled Orison, city amongst the clouds and dream of star citizens everywhere, makes its long-awaited debut riding high on the gas giant Crusader in Alpha 314. Now, like Microtech and Loreville before it, it will continue to expand in subsequent patches with the addition of hospitals, the Crusader showroom.
Okay, so this is what you were talking about
Yep.
with the showroom, with the like factory floor.
When I started this channel, I pushed for I called all my episodes distilled, and I kind of did away with just calling it that because it doesn't really convey why I called it that. Like, my position was there isn't enough seamless information where I could do the research for people that don't have a time to or don't want to, or maybe have a lot of different sources being thrown at them. And especially if any of those are tied to marketing for CIG or otherwise, or trying to hype clickbait. My position is I want to give you everything distilled into one package that you can use. And if you find something better, use it, please, by all means. And share that. And don't share my videos. Share the better one that you find. But if this works for you, please share it, first of all. But second of all, thank you. I'm glad you stuck around. And when you hear me talk about things, I've already done all that research. I've seen Orison content from over a year ago, hints at it, rumors that are being discussed, developer posts from all over Spectrum, and even, for example, this episode, I have 2 from Reddit. I even cited some of the game development stuff for the engine as well, because it impacted directly on Orison's frame rates, we think. And that's what we do, is we combine everything and then present it to you. So that's the thing. Like, I'm glad they're showing it in this video, but at the same time, if they didn't, rest assured, I'm going to tell you what's going to be there as best as with every source I can possibly find, instead of just, oh, here's a really cool looking Hercules. Don't get me wrong, this imagery is beautiful, but if they didn't show this, you would still know there's going to be a factory floor available to you with a visitor center, and CR's positions on why he wanted it, how he felt about the presentation of Crusader, and what their priorities are as a company, and what their city is envisioned to be on top of all that. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's kind of where it's going. So yes, so this is the factory area. This is for the larger ships. We saw earlier kind of hints at the bays for the smaller ships where little baby MSRs are being made. And that's going to be adorable to see like a dozen of those things. I hope they'll have to actually have them all lined up.
It's cute that you refer to it as the baby MSR.
Well, compared to the Herc, I mean.
Yeah. I can say I'm pretty sure that this bay was not set up for Hercules.
You know, you're correct. The original platforms were built for capital class vessels of the UEE fleet. And the UEE saw the value of this area where you could work in atmosphere with the welding technologies atmosphere allows you to have safely without needing to add oxygen and all sorts of other crazy things, and work with acetylene and all sorts of other fun things like cutting, and still have that lower gravity. So they are able to fuse metal plates together and cut things in ways that normal Earth, think Sol-like production capacity could do without having everything be at 1g gravity and have to deal with all the consequences of that. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, if you will. When the UEE started cutting back on their budget and said, look, this is cool, but we can't really keep our own production facilities for just, you know, our unique projects and such. Crusader jumped at the chance to buy this off of the UEE. And then once the system itself was solidified into these companies can buy entire planets, that's when Crusader truly took over Crusader and renamed Crusader Crusader. It wasn't always called Crusader.
I was just going off the fact that the front of the ship is clipping through the platform.
Oh my God, that's just a bad graphic. But yeah, it's development wise, like the actual game engine development, I'm curious why they showed this clip. If yes, it's literally clipping through the metal stanchions.
It'll be great to explore, but like even if you look a little bit further down, like further in front of the nose of the ship, there's that ramp behind the ship that's going off, and it's clipping through one of the like giant beams.
You're right. Although they do have my overhead gantries I like so much.
Those are pretty cool.
They're
and
huge.
It's got to be held in place by magnets.
How do they work?
No one knows.
But the way this is going to operate, aside from, I'm sure they're going to fix over time the graphical issues, but I'm very excited to see. I hope that they're, over time, I'm not saying in 3.14, but I would love to see in iterations of 3.14, 3.142, if there is one. You know, I would love to see mini jobs where you can earn UEC by like pushing metals around and helping build these Hercules, or maybe troubleshooting an MSR's lighting system. Like, you know, just make one of them. Just make one of them like a player opportunity. Maybe once in a while you land there and they're like, hey, we're short-staffed today. It would be really fun.
I would love a mission where I can see a half-assembled Herc and I have to deliver like a box of bolts or something.
Yes. And it would be even cooler, like, if that starts impacting it starts impacting the quantum system where everything is going through for the economy. So in IAE this year, they tested out the Jump Week this year. They tested out the people that wanted to buy a shirt, for example. It had to be delivered by players' deliveries. It didn't really work that well because a lot of things stayed sold out because I don't think people realized what was actually happening. But I hope over time, if they have these missions, and Orison is a very popular place for people to be, it would be fun to have those missions. And if people do those missions, Hercules have us and MSRs have a shorter respawn timer because there's more available. Like, you literally are helping to rebuild the stockpile of Hercules and MSR that are available to players that are waiting for them. Like, actually having a real tangible result on gameplay. That would be so amazing. You know, and that goes to hauling, you know, so you have hauling jobs. You would have, like you mentioned, like literally boxes of bolts being hand delivered, you know, inside the factory. And maybe even like using some of the multi-tools and the specialty tools we talked about before in our last co-host job. We talked about that, where there's going to be these special tools that are stronger than a multi-tool. So for ore mining, salvaging, cutting, medical gameplay, there's going to be special tools. I would love there to be bright blue Crusader editions of all those tools. And if you work hard enough, you can earn them. Like, you earn reputation to get the cool paint job version of it for free.
That would be really freaking sweet.
Additionally, this first version of Crusader boasts another new feature for Alpha 3.14, our initial implementation of planetary volumetric clouds, which builds off previous work from our stellar gas clouds and begins the process of expanding that tech across the entire surface of a planet or a moon. Now, while still in active development and not yet final, the work continues beyond Alpha 3.14 with SDF occlusion to help alleviate graphical artifacting, the addition of local VFX work, and a refinement to overall process that will improve an already amazing quality seen here in subsequent patches. On the gameplay front, there are several advancements to ship and vehicle operation coming in Alpha 3.14 that aim to further improve the combat and flight experience, including Power Management V2, formerly referred to here as capacitors, designed to rebalance all the connected systems that make ships go. From thrusters to weapons to shields, adding another layer of critical decision making to combat is just one more way to put the successful outcome of any battle more squarely in players' hands.
So let's pause this for 1 sec. So that is a major, major topic. If anybody has heard talk of capacitor gameplay and all the different subsystems going to impact, it's now called Power Management V2. It is, I don't know why they changed it at the last minute, the name, because it's going to confuse people even more, but that is capacitor. If you've heard something about capacitors, you see something posted about capacitors in the past, it is the same thing. Just because it's called power management does not mean it will not be the same thing. Furthermore, if you've ever played with the triangle where you can switch between propulsion, weaponry, and shields, and you wonder, why is this even here? It barely does anything on my ship. It will do a lot now. So after 3.14, be sure to test it on your favorite ships that you use a lot, your daily drivers, your combat vessels, because there is a tremendous amount of changes that it will do when you suddenly throw 100% or something like that, or 50% shields and propulsion and do away with weaponry. You will see a lot of differences in how long you can run the afterburners, how much your shields can absorb and recharge. And then you could even switch it around and be more aggressive and literally switch to propulsion and weapons or something. Now, normally the triangle is kept 33, 33, 33 ish, to meet the 100%. But as you change those things, it will drastically change the characteristics of your ship. So be sure to know about it, because your opponents will, and your teammates also. If you're wondering, hey, how come my Gladius is not going as fast as my buddies and we're both in the same ship? That's why. He is utilizing the combat, the energy triangle, and with the new capacitor gameplay, he is able to keep his afterburner running far longer than yours, until you learn the same trick.
So you could say that he is invoking the power of the Triforce?
Yes. Yes. And unlike the original memes, it's not crashing your computer, so it's all good.
Yeah.
There's also missile operator mode and the rework to missile guidance and control, which not only brings about a new way to interact with and control the variety of munitions available on ships and vehicles, but improves the way they handle themselves.
There's the triangle on the bottom
by
left.
Bringing the...
It's an old familiar screen on a lot of different ships. Remember, you can always move it around, because that's going to be an important screen for you to know. Almost as important as the shields or the locking systems that you see on the other screens. But that bottom left screen is going to become much more important to you, because you're going to be actively managing that triangle a lot in different stages of your flights. Even in a hauler, for example, I honestly would not have much of any weapon system things until I knew I was in a fight. I would rather have a lot of shields and propulsion in case I get surprised, or if I'm trying to land and I take a hard landing, I need that extra propulsion capability, and the extra shields would be nice. So just some things to think about.
It looks like in this shot that we're sitting in the Connie Taurus.
The color scheme, kind of, maybe.
I don't know of, because there's those like vertical struts. And I don't remember seeing those on other Connies.
You got a good point. I don't think they've gone past the other Connies yet, and I don't think they would show us if they did, unless it was being rolled out in 3.14. So
this one's also using a version of the new HUD interface.
Absolutely, and it looks beautiful. I even like the old school color. See the locks, the little status windows, for lack of a better term, the status little dot, the little squares that are telling you different important things, like the warnings.
same intelligent flight control system pilots use for spacecraft to their missiles and torpedoes. This has the effect of improving both performance and tracking ability while providing skilled pilots a way to use their talents in avoiding death and destruction. A revitalization of the way radar, scanning, and ping work throughout the Star Citizen universe is another essential addition to the upcoming Alpha 314, with detailed and consistent means of discovery, distraction, and potentially destruction. Now, this new unified system with its upcoming FPS counterpart will form the foundation of a new and improved level of investigation, cat and mouse chase, and more for the future, while changing the way players interact with content already in the game today.
Can we pause that for one sec? So, just to be clear, I was one of the people that was saying this. I was hoping that probes would be in this version. I am not sure if they're going to make it to 3.14 because this is the focus that we've been seeing the past couple days is basically localized scanning. Localized check. They're trying to iron out the kinks of scanning for both PvE, PvP, and for resource scanning locally. So your ship itself is giving the ping. Your ship is looking forward or looking around for different targets, whether it be for mining, whether it be for a player to fight, whether it be for your mission that you're looking for PvE-wise, or customs officials to know where they're at, maybe if you're trying to move some slam around.
Yeah.
Whatever the job is, in the future, there will be probing mechanics like we talked about in the last co-hosted discussion that will take this to the next level, where you'll physically send a probe out with a discerned amount of fuel, deploy it, and send it out to look for specific targets. It'll be pre-programmed to look for resources like asteroids, or look for an NPC maybe that you have a mission to go hunt down, and you don't just have a beacon to take you right there. Or if it's designed to hunt down players, you might be trying to find a friend, or it's disabled, or an enemy that you're trying to locate or just stay away from just by you knowing where it's at. So just some thoughts. With scanning is going to be something that's going to be a cornerstone of the entire game, and it's going to be something you're going to need to get good at, or have a friend that's really good at it and hangs out with you a lot.
Yeah, I do have a comment about scanning, though. For the listeners, I just want them to know the reason that Red is having to tell me to pause the video. He was having an audio issue, so we're playing it on my end. I just want people to know about that so they don't get confused. Then, about my comment, I love the new UI. It seems very alien to me.
Yeah.
Like the movie Alien. At least, like, that's the vibe I get. Like, it's something that I could have seen in the movie Alien, or from playing the game.
Yeah, I like it in general. It looks like it's blending modern stuff in with sci-fi, like it from that generation. I think it's really cool. I think it's a nice UI. I hope to see it come across all the ships in a uniform pattern, maybe with some flair and style for each type of ship, but each ship will have the benefits of the modern UI blockouts. We'll probably do a whole episode just on UI discussion and like different little pieces of it, because the way the canvas UI is being put in, it's like pieces. Like on the right side there, you see those panthers, for example? Like that right there is giving you an entire status of a subsystem that for your weapons, for those missile systems. And if you look on the bottom right, you can see that there's like QUA. I believe that's his quantum fuel. There's none left, but he has full hydrogen, like the standard fuel that you're just flying around with. So like there's a lot of information just in that one blockout area, just in that one section.
Yeah, doing a whole episode on the new UI would be a lot of fun.
Definitely. Yeah.
And of course, all of these new systems are displayed better than ever before with the new Canvas Slice HUD, a tech made possible by our continuing development of building blocks that aims to provide an improved layout that maximizes screen real estate while providing more opportunities for increased information.
Somebody randomly shooting at nothing outside of PO? That's very realistic, by the way. Props to them for capturing it.
I was just about to comment. They keep saying things we just talked about. Like
manufacturer-specific visual designs like the Aegis one we've seen before and the Drake version currently being developed now. But when you're flying through the verse, there's been a ship waiting patiently for its time to shine. That last variant of our original 5 pledge ships finally makes its debut
Original
in the upcoming
5?
Alpha 314, the Constellation Taurus.
I'll admit, I didn't know that was the
May not-
one. I didn't know that was the Connie that was the one. I could have sworn the Connie Phoenix was very early too. I was not aware that Connie Taurus was one of the original 5. Didn't know that. I knew it was early. Didn't know it was that early.
I had no idea what. I don't even know what the original top 10. I don't even know what the original 1-1 is.
My original was the Aurora LX. It was one of the last, I think, of the iteration. It was the leather-seated Aurora. Slightly
Ooh,
better.
Fancy you.
Right? I think it had slightly better guns and a leather seat, and it is now an Apollo Medevac CCU'd.
Oh.
It's a shame. I tried to keep it as long as I could. I couldn't resist before the days of the LTI tokens being like sold all the time.
Yeah.
I couldn't resist. I tried to keep the Aurora LX as long as I could, but yeah.
I kind of feel that way with my fancy leather seat Nomad.
That's a good little pickup truck, but yeah, it has its limitations, just like any of the smaller ships of that class. Well, heck, the Nomad's even much more practical than the LX, at least, though.
Very true.
Like much, kid, but it's got it where it counts. And that's just be careful where you take it, because Alpha 314 also brings with it the danger, the conflict, and the opportunities inherent in 2 dynamic events scheduled to occur during the next quarter.
Okay, so
First,
can we go back slightly here? I mean, slightly. That right there, that right there. So inside there, that hull picture, I think that tells us a little bit about the size of the SCU. I cannot, for the life of me, get an answer about how many SCU this ship, the Taurus, will have. It is dancing around. I've heard everything from 180, and I think one of the viewers noted 230 he heard, or 220, something like that. I'm sorry.
I was going to guess
know.
220.
Yeah, I just don't know. The biggest thing to remember on the Phoenix is, for example, is it has a squished cargo bay due to its luxurious upper deck. And in fact, it needed a smaller rover just to fit. Whereas the Connie Andromeda is busy packing a rover than it is to have a lot of space for cargo, and it has a lot of other things it needs to fit in that ship. Whereas this ship, aside from its missile bays that you saw above its cargo deck, and its docking collar on the side, which needs space for that too, there is not much fluff. So we may see numbers that we are not expecting, but I can't be firmly held to anything because I can't find it. I think when we finally hear tomorrow a full rundown in Star Citizen Live about a lot of different things, Todd Pappy's going to go over a lot of different things that are in development and for 3.14. I think they'll finally drop the bomb of what the Taurus's SCU is. At least I hope so. And the reason I'm saying that is not because of my frustrations of trying to find it, the excitement of that, trying to hunt this down, more so because I want folks to make the decision about the Raelin and the Taurus before it gets a price hike, because you know it will, with every ounce of information. So it's very frustrating that they have not released it. It's possible they're still debating themselves about exactly how high that cargo is going to be stacked. If you look at that shot that we just had up, the cargo is not stacked up past those missile bays. Technically, in the middle of the ship, those 2 middle rows could have easily had cargo. If you look, I mean, there's nothing stopping, theoretically, cargo from being stacked in those 2 middle rows. There's space for at least 1 more row of cargo containers. But on the sides, obviously, the missile bays are blocking at least a portion of those. Heck, I could stack behind those too, unless there's limitations of the cargo elevator, which is another important factor here. This vessel will highly likely, if not guaranteed, have a massive cargo elevator on the bottom of it. So at the very least, you should be able to fit an Ursa rover and maybe even a small vehicle along with the Ursa rover instead of cargo when you want to. So you have an internalized cargo bay that can handle vehicles, and it has a pretty reasonable amount of weapon systems on board. It ain't no Connie, Andromeda, or Phoenix, or any of these other Connies, but it is a Connie that is able to hold its own for its, I would argue, for its size, and especially when with Planetary Outpost right in our front window here, coming up to 3.15. I would not see it impossible to utilize a Connie Taurus as a nice all-arounder vehicle to move goods back and forth to Planetary Outpost, move vehicles into Planetary Outpost. Like, for example, maybe put 2 ROCs or an ROCDS and an ROC in this thing, and then be able to put them in the garage in your Planetary Outpost where it's maintaining them and everything else. You're stacking all that ore, and then all of a sudden you can bring some of those ore out with the Taurus and bring in more spare parts and even more ground vehicles back with the return trip instead of just going back with an empty hull. With the Raelin, you will not have any of those capabilities. The Raelin has externalized cargo bays. Those triangles open up to have standard cargo units. So those grid symbols that are in the middle of this ship, each one of those is a standard cargo unit. So don't quote me on that being an exactly one SCU. But they are standardized units that hold cargo, and this will handle a lot of SCU, just to be clear. But these boxes will be shoved in the Raelin on the outside of the vessel, and it will not allow you to utilize properly vehicles.
I'm going to make a prediction that the Taurus will hold 2 Ursas.
And that would be a great spot for it. I don't think they'll let it carry a Tonk, but... Or maybe
no, I think the Tonk will be too tall.
But I think it will have no... I think you're right. I think that's a very fair judgment. If it can carry 2 rovers, unlike the other Connies, it gives it another angle. Because an Ursa rover, or a G12 for that matter, by the way, a little cousin, so to speak, of the Ursa rover, at least in capabilities, either one of them, having 2 of them on board, would be a nice assortment. And those are going to not just be transports. Those can carry goods, spare parts for your mining vehicles, or for your hand mining, or in combat. They have a remote turret on top of them, and they're armored, and you can breathe in that thing. So you can save people. You can fight in it. The Ursa rovers are going to be serious homestead defense vehicles and mining vehicles. Support vehicles. So there's going to be some really interesting things you can do, and the Connie Taurus seems to be a more practical vessel for that type of work. Now, is it going to be as maneuverable as the Raelin? Is it going to carry as much cargo as the Raelin? No and no. And furthermore, we haven't heard them say a peep about the Connie Taurus having a tractor beam. So the Raelin having that tractor beam, being able to take that external cargo and just zip it down to the surface, is going to be very useful. I talked in my Raelin video about how you should, can't guarantee this yet, be able to VTOL in a landing mode, or not. They're considering allowing you to do it without being in landing mode, and sit like 20, 30 feet off the ground and drop off goods. So maybe you have people you don't trust completely, like they're, neutral to you. They ship you the money, or at least half of it, and then you open the external cargo base from the inside, use a tractor beam from the inside, and you're sitting pretty behind your 2 large shield generators, and you're able to drop all the goods onto their pad via tractor beam from 20, 30 feet off the top, from 20, 30 feet off the ground, and then just fly away, and you get paid the rest of your money. Well, and you have the turrets protecting you the whole time, the 2 size 4 guns on both sides. Whereas the Taurus, yes, it does have weapons to defend itself. Yes, it does have shields to defend itself. It even has better protection for its cargo because it's internalized. But the Taurus will have to fully make itself vulnerable to deliver goods. That large cargo elevator, you'll have to land, you'll have to pop that elevator open, and then all of a sudden, you have to really trust who's going to be around you when you're doing all this, or have a lot of protection.
Yeah.
With it, the danger, the conflict, and the opportunities inherent in 2 dynamic events scheduled to occur during the next quarter. First, the return of the newly improved and remastered Xeno threat that will bring all players across all servers to bear in battling the tormented invaders from the Pyro system, as well as the smaller, more local threat of the Ninetails in a new PvP-focused event that will occur several times in different locations throughout the Stanton system. Of course, if you get caught up where you shouldn't be, there's also the new surrender system that will allow criminals who can't get away to be arrested without losing either their life or their ship.
Pause
If
that
you're
for 1
into
second.
that kind of
Okay, so 2 very important things here. If you heard Tony Z talking about how there's going to be jam stations for the Nine Tails lockdown, that was that second event. There will be events that are able to be utilized both for PvE and PvP content, where you'll be fighting players right alongside the UEE CDF, the Civilian Defense Force, helping the UEE rid Stanton of the dangerous pirates. And the pirates will have players also helping them rid Stanton of the UEE and Civilian Defense Forces. So you will be able to gain some type of reputation, and also and NPC ships will remember that you fought them, and then they will try to attack you for a while until that has something called decay. The surrender system, one other thing, that lockdown system will be tied to large price hikes in different items from areas where that lockdown's happening. If there's a quantum disruption where you can't get in and out of a station and the pirates are attacking constantly, you will suddenly find that everything goes up, commodity-wise and product-wise. So you would need to buy in bulk. And I would highly recommend every time you land from now on, making sure you have a full load of fuel, making sure you have a full load of ammunition, because if you have it, and you know, your character's not exactly starving to death all the time, because when this happens, we don't know exactly how much things will cost. Suddenly a drink of water might cost, 30 UEC or something. And if you don't have a ship that makes coffee or something like the 300 series, with the customizations attached, you might not have that luxury. Also, more importantly, fuel load. Your ship takes a lot of fuel, and people do not realize it adds up dramatically. And then the second part of that is the surrender mechanic. I'm going to give Ash a chance to talk about that first part if you want to weigh in on the Xeno threat and the jamming of stations and economy.
I'm excited for the event to come back. I think the first one was too short. It forced you to I am more of a casual player, and I don't like to be forced to do something at a specific time because for any reason. Especially because the previous Xeno threat was 2 days?
Yeah, it was.
That's not really enough time. There's a ton of casual players in Star Citizen. We don't all have the ability to just drop whatever we're doing and play when an event pops up. And if it goes on for a week, like the pre-flies, that's different.
And that event, they had stages. So the 2 days, for example, was one stage. And it was very frustrating to, you're not the only person I've heard of that, say hey, I only have certain days to play, or I only have a certain amount of time to play. And they also, I heard it mentioned from a couple of my friends, I got them back into Star Citizen, got them all patched up, got them in the game, gave them ships to fly, the ones that didn't have something to fly. Other guys were riding with me. Other folks had their own ships. Everybody's having whatever they wanted. And then we realized, oh, this is the stage where we just deliver goods for the UEE Navy. And we get to look at it outside of a Javelin. Okay, that's cool. They didn't have the Javelin tour at the time. So then the next stage was the fun stage. And then I couldn't rally all these folks again 2 days later for the proper stage that had all the cool fighting and a Xeno threat Idris appearing and having to take it down for the help of to save the UEE Javelin, and that was a frustration. Another thing that seems to be a surprise to me, at least, is that people don't realize these large ships, they purposely do not focus fire. There was a video that the devs did when Xenothreat was first being released, and this was prior to them saying, "Please stop shooting our ships" in Fleet Week. I love that the jump point discussion about that. He's like, "We did so much work. Please stop shooting. They're your friends." But when people decided to shoot those ships in Fleet Week, and then later with Xenothreat, one of the things that's been discussed is, these ships don't seem to blow you up instantly. And the answer is, of course they can. They have 19 turrets shooting at you. But they're told, the AI is told not to focus fire. because they said internal testing makes it not fair and not fun for the player. The player gets frustrated that the massive capital ship does massive capital ship things to a tiny little ship. So if you're ever thinking you're amazing in front of a freelancer and your freelancer isn't getting blown to smithereens in an instant, it's because that's meant to make it more fun for you as a player. Just keep that in mind. If you're getting hit, so if you still think like, well, maybe that's just covering for bad AI. If you're getting hit by the one turret, that means every single turret on the side of that ship and the top and the bottom would be hitting you right now if they were properly focusing fire like they were supposed to. During internal playtesting, they did that, and people were getting nearly insta-popped. So just bear that in mind. If the ship was hitting you with one turret, it would have been hitting you with all those turrets. And yeah, it would be a very short
Which in
engagement.
itself is kind of cool. Like, if you have a bounty on you, it'd be kind of cool if it like switches and then it does focus fire.
So in Star Wars Galaxies, they had a system that it was the original vision to have Jedi come into the game because they were so powerful. They couldn't have everybody be a Jedi at the same time. They had this idea of you being able to find these Force tokens, basically, and if you find enough of them, or if something chooses you because you're the most important person or something, you're the most chosen one, so to speak, you would become a temporary Force-sensitive character in your play stuff. And once you die, you died. Like, that character would just disappear, and you'd be back to your normal character slots. The character wouldn't be available anymore. And the idea was the more you used your Force powers, the more you revealed yourself, the higher your bounty went. So at first, it would be like, oh, wow, that's a Jedi over there. He's still learning how to be a Jedi. But you have to do it in secret and, like, train outside of the big cities and have friends that will protect you. And then eventually, like, they would start sending, like, top tier, like, Boba Fett and, like, all these top Jedi hunting bounty hunters that aren't afraid of Jedi. And if you still beat them, finally Darth Vader himself will come down in a Lambda shuttle and attack you and like just one shot you and just destroy you. I think it would be so cool if there was a bounty system in the game where like it started out with like the local hammerhead would come by, like if you kept up your nonsense. And if you somehow beat the local hammerhead and all its little support ships, like it was like, okay, enough's enough. The UEE Idris Kickass has kind of come over and beat the crap out of you until you go down.
You know how much we spent on that hammerhead?
Yeah. Like I would love that. Like I would love that so much. Like it was like literally like this scaling system. And like when you go to jail, like you have like you have the option to get like a tattoo of the Idris that took you down. So like everybody knows you like got to the Idris.
Oh, that would be pretty cool.
Like you got the hammerhead tat, and everything in the Idris tat. If you get to that.
Either their life or their ship. If you're into that kind of thing.
So this is really good. If you just caught that, he says it would spare your life or your ship under surrender mechanics. So right now, from what we heard through the rumor mill, you're literally going to be, let's say you get caught with a whole ship full of slam. And they're like, hey, customs official scanned your stuff. We found this dangerous drug cargo. You got bad luck. We found it. You done bad. Stand still. We're going to arrest you. So what's going to happen is it'll say, like I said, arrest in progress, and you'll fade into the prison. That's where the character is now in this scene. However, he just said it'll spare your ship, and that's an important thing for a lot of players. So if you surrender, you will have a reduced sentence, criminal sentence, much less than if you attack or try to outrun the NPCs. And also, you should have your ship available as soon as you're ready to leave. So hour-long sentence, real-world time, if you don't go popping rocks or finding other ways, or attempt to escape, of course, through the escape route, which is very entertaining, would be 15 minutes, let's say. I'm just picking just to give you an image of time. It's not the exact numbers. And then you would instantly be able to respawn your ship once you're a free citizen again. And that's important if you only have one ship or that's your favorite ship or something like that. So surrendering might be a viable option for players in certain situations, especially if you're in something expensive that you treasure. You don't want to have to wait a half hour for. because that timer would start only after you finally got out of prison, and you could start the timer for the respawning of the ship.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that with Orison and Crusader, we truly do belong amongst the clouds. That the volumetric cloud tech itself might not be exactly where we want it to be just yet, but like with all things in Star Citizen, it'll continue to be iterated on and improved in subsequent releases. And that, boy howdy, can that Pedro make a piece of music. Jeez. Now we're going to take our regularly scheduled quarterly break here, but our other broadcasts will continue on Fridays. And for all the latest information about the continuing progress of Alpha 314, including when you can jump in and help test things in the PTU, all that stuff will be available on the robertspaceindustries.com website. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all in about a month.
Well, we'll see him in a day, actually, because he's got to do Star Citizen Live unless somebody else is hosting it. But, but at least on this show, yeah, we'll see in a month.
I'm excited. There's lots to look forward to in this next update.
Yeah, big time. I think Orison's a big step forward. I've said this again, and I'm sorry, I'll be a broken record about it. I truly believe for Orison it's already good, but to notch it up to the out of the park level, you need to be able to take Javelins and Hull DE, some of the largest capital ships that are not designed to go in atmosphere, and be able to dock at Orison. Orison was originally made to produce capital ships in an atmospheric circumstance, so it would make sense for those ships to be able to dock there. If it can, it will become the capital for all headquarters is a better word, just to be clear about what I'm saying. A headquarters for all large organizations that have such ships. And as the Javelin, as the Hull DE come online, you will see like people staging out of there because you have the planetary services and you can still use those big ships that are only supposed to be in space.
Yeah, for Orison to make like my top-notch list of just amazingness, it needs a whale wash.
I'm picturing when you said that though, like you needed to do like jazz hands. It would have been cool. It would have been like amazing.
Whale wash.
Whale wash.
Whale wash.
I don't think they're gonna have a whale wash, but at the very least, I think we're gonna get very close to those, uncomfortably close to that whale. And I would not be surprised if it does damage to your ship. So I predict a lot of blooper reel stuff content, very prime for it at least in the future.
Yeah, we do have some film locations on Orison in the future episodes. At least planned to. But, you know, with frame rates, you never really know what's going to happen.
That's the thing. It's always a test. And I think what you'll see in 3.14 is going to be a lot worse than 3.14.1. You know, or at least the side-loaded patches. They may even sneak in like just a quality of life patch that's not even called 3.1, 3.1.4, 3.14.1. It may not be called that, but I would not be surprised to see tiny little fixes for lighting, for cloud texturing. They're already hinting at that in this video we just watched. Where they're going to have to focus on those things and really nail them down. And that's fine, because Orison will not be the only system, the only planet with big clouds and pressure and gas giants. This is exciting because this is one of the last planets they wanted to get right. And I think there's only like 2 left after this that they don't already have. It's like ice planets and lava planets, at least based on the basics. And lava planets are coming in. They're already working hard on those. If you look at the roadmap, there's like there's like a heat suit. There's a lava planet. There's like all this lava technology.
Isn't that like the primary planet systems of Pyro?
Yes. So, and Pyro is going to be like one of those high risk, high reward places. Only one place in the entire system that's permanently habited and has like the equivalent of planetary surfaces through a large outpost station, the ruined station. And there will be like these derelict stations that might have fly-by-night services, maybe, that will offer like refueling and that's it. And better be careful because, you know, players and NPCs might be camping it that might not be friendly.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of gameplay there for people. You mentioned the Starfarer earlier. The Starfarer is going to become more and more popular and important as time goes on. So I hope to see more of that. And I know that has nothing to do with anything right now, but it is something to keep on the horizon, is that as we move in from 3.14 to 3.15, having a Starfarer or a Starfarer Gemini is going to be very valuable. And if you're thinking about the annual sale coming up, you might want to keep your powder dry on any of your credit that you have and consider getting a CCU for one of those. Even though the Starfarer internals are not beautiful right now, they're going to be extremely important for both its refining and its fuel carrying capacities. And all their cargo ships will be able to carry fuel before I get a lot of angry comments a lot of mentions in the comments. I should say nice. You know, it's been really appreciated. If there is anything in this that you kind of caught that you said, hey, that's not really the case. You guys, you hit this, you hit that, but you didn't hit this. Please mention it in the comments. It's not just for me. It's not just for Ash. It's also for other people who are viewing and community members who are looking at this and backers that are considering, you know, what they're going to do with their fleets. So it's very important. So anything you can do to contribute.
Yeah, like even if it's some information that we ended up getting wrong, I mean, we're not lore experts. Most of the show is speculation on what we see and where we think it'll go.
Yep.
When we do an episode like this one in particular.
Yeah, and it's we're just as excited as you. You know, we're just super backers, just like the rest of you folks that are very excited about this. It's great to see where the community's going. It's great to see another planet being born right in front of our eyes. Really exciting stuff. I can't wait to go check out some space whales.
I cannot wait to see space whales with you.
I think I know the perfect ship. I think the Connie Phoenix. I know I'm biased, but the huge windows on the side. Come on. I mean that's just perfect for it.
I mean, it has the hot tub too, doesn't it?
Yep, and a well-stocked bar that you can look at and you can't use, but it's there. It's the thought that counts.
You get to look at the alcohol, but you don't get to touch it.
Yep, and you can play Moonlight Sonata on the Hartwell 88G piano. It's the only song it can play.
Great song choice. Wait, it actually plays it?
Yeah, it does. You sit down and you hold F and you select Moonlight Sonata, and you can walk away while it's playing.
Which movement?
I don't know. It's a really long song. It keeps going and going and going.
All right, I'm gonna have to go on your ship and see, because there's 3 movements to that song, and I need to know which one is playing.
You know what? If you're not happy with it, you're gonna have to send some nastygram to Josh Coons down in Texas, because he's the one who put together the piano, and he said it was inspired by the modern Westworld version, where they have the piano as like one of the main set pieces that it auto plays the piano. And he basically made a space version of that. So like when it plays, the keys light up and everything while it plays.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to have to come and see that.
You know what? We'll make... It seems like everything else we do is a video. Let's make that a video.
Okay.
We'll do like a double. Honestly, we should do that. Is like bit pieces. By the way, I'm leaving all this in. If somebody has had the wherewithal to stay this long into this video, they deserve it. If they want it, please. So just a warning to Ash.
Okay.
But yeah, like we could do like double header videos. So, you know, have like a small bit about a very specific thing. Like, for example, the interior of the Phoenix, highlight the piano, highlight the fact though the bar doesn't work, highlight the fact that the hot tub doesn't work. And then also go into maybe some comparison. Like, so you mentioned sweet and sour earlier. It'd be cool to like, the Phoenix is a very sour ship because a lot of things don't work on it, but it has like these tiny little hints of like where it could be and what it's going to be. It's going to be a fantastic ship over time. And then do something sweet, like a fully fleshed out game mechanic or something else. Like maybe we could cover...
By the way, for those that are actually wondering what he's talking about by sweet and sour, instead of powdered sugar. Put some shredded sharp cheddar on your French toast next time. It's delicious.
There's the end of the video right there. I don't think I can top that. She's laying down secret recipes here to cinnamon toast.
Yeah, put down that
French
cheese,
toast,
melt
French.
it. It's delicious. Still put the syrup. You need the syrup. The syrup helps it. Just instead of the sugar, cheese.
Ash, stay on the line, but just that'll do it for this episode.
Okay.
This has been Distilled with Red J, and an excellent co-star today, Ash. AweSmAsh, thank you for joining me yet again. A link to her
Thanks for
channel.
having me again.
Yep, always. A link to her channel will be below. Also, a link to Divisions Episode 1. I don't want to jinx us. Will be in there as well. If you want to directly go to that. But please be sure to check out her channel as well, because there's a lot of good content that she puts out. And it's about all sorts of very in-depth stuff, including a lot of really cool technical things and technologies that, like, you know, from a bygone era that are being modernized and worked on. I really appreciate her in-depth videos.
Thank you.
And that's it. Thank you for sticking with us for this video. If you made it this far, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It greatly helps the channel. And right after this, please go into Ash's videos because she deserves it. And you all have a good one. See you on the next one, which will be
See ya.
tomorrow.